So thank you for the opportunity to have a discussion with everybody about leadership development. And before we get too far, I want to really address the fact here that leadership development is a huge topic, and we are not going to try and boil the ocean here today at all. We're really going to address two areas of focus, really, which is identifying leaders, and then once we identify them, how do we develop them? So I'll take the first part on leader identification, and Margaret's going to participate in the second part, which will be more around what to do. Again, this is really an opportunity for us to sort of start thinking about this process. I found this quote while I was researching this topic. A company is only as strong as its weakest leader. So it is absolutely something that is crucial to the success of organizations, and that is their leadership team. And we really are hoping that everybody is thinking leaders at every level here, right? So we want to make sure that individual contributors are also seen as leaders, as well as up to, team leads, people managers, as well as the executive team. So this is a really important competency for companies to have in order to be successful. So why is it that statistics show that 77% of organizations report that they're experiencing a leadership gap? Thousands and thousands of boomers are retiring every single day. And, it'll be really interesting to see what happens post-COVID with respect to retiring. And I know some folks I know said, I don't want one more year. So, we may look to even see that increasing in 2021. We also have this, the new worker and the millennials who 67% of are looking for a new job. And those who plan to stay, 91% plan to stay in their current job for fewer than 3 years. So leadership development, do I develop my current high potentials for them to leave and go somewhere else? That is certainly something many companies are thinking. And then again, we see that represented by millennials saying that their leadership skills are not being fully developed, 63%. Yet 83% of businesses say it's important to develop leaders at every level. So I think what we have here, and only 5% have a leadership development program at all levels. So what we have here is a super important issue, and we don't really know exactly what to do. So we're going to give you some food for thought. And, really the first challenge in this opportunity is to identify our future leaders. Who are they? And if we stop for a minute and think, what were we requiring from our leaders before COVID? And then what are we thinking that we need from our leaders post-COVID? Have our needs changed, right? Have those competencies of what our leaders need to emulate changed? Certainly, one of the competencies of a leader post-COVID is resiliency and sort of the ability to pivot quickly and adapt. So one of the first key components of leadership development is identifying what it is that we need in a leader. And I think that we have all, no one here is a stranger probably to taking a really strong performer and promoting that person to lead the group, and basically promoting on performance and having that person struggle in a leadership role. So really here, we need to stop and think about, are we promoting based on or developing based on their current performance or on their potential performance? So Korn Ferry did some research on the promotion and leader development process, and typically found that within intercompany, within side organizations and developing their promoting for leadership roles, skills and competencies were typically the driving promotion decision. Yet, one of the reasons promotions fail is due to unsuitable traits and dispositions. right? So let's sort of put this into non-Korn Ferry terms, right? So we promote, I'm going to use a sales example. We're going to promote our top sales representative, who is an incredibly hard worker, very committed to our organization, and has a fantastic attitude and level of grit, right? So those would be the skills and the competencies that we base the promotion on. Yet, this individual lacked business acumen, or perhaps was unable to mentor other people and was more of an individual contributor, and thus failed at this promotional opportunity, which is extraordinarily devastating for an organization, that you lose your top performer in sales and then promote to failure, right? So that's one of the issues. The second issue is leaders are being promoted into critical roles without the accurate identification and a full understanding of their readiness. Again, really good performer who has a great attitude and commitment to our organization, but are they ready to lead? So what Korn Ferry suggests after this introspection into leadership is the phenomena of promote to failure is really having companies identifying traits and dispositions very early on of what they require from leaders, or end up with this problem continuing. And before we talk about these traits, I really want to address the whole person for a moment. And it is essential for organizations to have a complete talent picture of that person, not just a snapshot of today. And for those of you who I've not had the opportunity to talk with, I do run MEA's predictive index consulting business here. And one of my very infamous visuals is the Headheart briefcase, right? So I want to sort of outline the whole person and what we're really talking about. And the briefcase of an individual really talks about what a person can do, right? And their knowledge, skills, and experience. It tends to be, this is also where job performance would come in. So for interviewing, it would be on knowledge, skills, and experience. For promotion, it's going to be that plus your current work experience. Our heart is our values and culture, right? So it is our fit into the organization with respect to how we work. Our drives, our behaviors in our head, our behavior and cognitive drives tell us how a person will do a job. And so all of this stuff together is that whole person. And having a clear picture of this whole person is extremely important in understanding who our new leaders potentially are and where our development efforts will probably be most advantageous. So leadership traits. Predictive Index has done a significant amount of studying on leadership traits and have come up with these 8 traits. I'm not saying that this is important for all of that this is right for your organization, but this is some food for thought. And I have here on the right, the heart and the briefcase. Is I look at these 2 things, or these 8 traits, as they come from briefcase and heart, right? So self-awareness is always, it is that competency that how aware are you of who you are, and not only who you are, but how you affect other people, right? So self-awareness, Tasha, and I think her last name's Urich, Margaret, wrote a book and she did a study of 50 people and interviewed them for their self-awareness level, and found out that after she talked to the people who are closest to this person, it was really like 20% are really self-aware. So how do I either positively or negatively affect the efficiency of the person next to me? Accountability, vision, followership, right? Do people follow me? Business skills. Now, arguably that's going to be in the briefcase. Courage, that's part of the heart, mentorship, and team, the understanding of team. So how do we identify what's in the head? And early identification is key to understanding who our leaders are. There are several different kinds of assessments that really help understand what kind of leader an individual will be And that early identification is key when you do this right as they start or pre-hire. The Strength Finders tool from Gallup was created by Don Clifton and Marcus Buckingham. Marcus has gone out on his own, created Standout, and Predictive Index also gives the identification of those traits. So the second part of this process is going to be the transparent development process, where you have to consider your business goals. What are you planning to do in the next year? What kind of leader are you going to need? Are you going to open a new location, potentially need a general manager? Do you have people who are potentially retiring? All those things need to be considered as you plan your process. This sounds obvious, but it's important to talk to your employees. Make sure you understand if they have leadership, if they're interested. I'll never forget the woman who worked for me, and I talked to her about leadership development, and she was like, wait a minute, I have no interest. And to me, that was strange, but it is key that you're making sure that you're getting an understanding of where the interests lie. And again, recognize potential versus readiness. And that to promote to failure is a challenge. When you have potential, Margaret's going to talk more about what you do to get somebody ready. Consider all types of development opportunities, right? It's not just class, it's mentoring, it is experiential learning opportunities. It may be outside your organization, inside your organization, perhaps an MBA, et cetera. There's tons of different opportunities. And most importantly, create a plan. This helps to calm the fears of the individuals who fear they're not being developed, be very transparent about it, create a plan. And really, one of the traits is accountability that we talked about. So have an individual take accountability for their development. I'm going to turn it over to Margaret, who's going to talk about more of the trends of leadership development as we come out of the COVID era.
And Holly, can I ask for you to continue to share your slides for me?
Yes.
All right. Perfect. All right, so Holly did a great job of talking about the need to identify the leaders. And as you said, right, not everybody wants to be a leader, and not everyone's going to have the skills required to be a leader. But one of the things I wanted to start with is we talk about developing those leaders that you've identified and who have said, yes, I do want to be developed. I do want to take this on. Here are some trends that we're seeing, I should say leadership development trends for 2021. And as you can imagine, right, these are as a result of last year. It's a result of the COVID pandemic and everything else that occurred in 2022. So first, it's that need to be able to develop new knowledge and skills. If you think about last year, those skills that we needed to develop was how to work virtually for many of us. And even if you yourself did not need to go virtual, you may have had some employees that did, and you may have had some customers and clients that went virtual. At some level, you needed to take that on and figure out how to make this work. If you wanted to change what you were doing, you had to learn some new knowledge, potentially some new skills. There's also the need to deliver faster results. The ability to just change rapidly is going to become the new norm. So being able to do that, which we all did last year, but now being able to do that on a regular basis and really to be successful doing that is going to be the new norm. And so something you want to look for in your potential leaders, and then think about how can you help to develop those skills in your future leaders. Also, the ability to plan for economic volatility. So, and it's not only plan for it, it's to forecast it. It's to see that it's coming and then to create a plan for that. Highlighted absolutely last year, and now we know that's something that's likely also to continue. On here, we've got building trust. So you could say building trust has always been important, and it really truly has. But you could say now more than ever, you need your leaders and those that you're grooming to move into leadership roles to be able to build and maintain trust. According to a Forbes article, there has been a huge erosion of trust in institutions and in the principles that lead those institutions based on last year. So that's why we say now more than ever, we need to build that trust back up. So you need to have that ability in your current leaders, and you need to be looking to develop that ability in your future leaders. And then there's just the need to be to be able to adapt. And again, I think we all understand why that's such a need now. And that, as far as people can see who are doing all this forecasting, it's not going to go away. So we need to understand that and identify those individuals that have that ability. Thanks, Holly. So how do we go about doing this, right? As Holly alluded to earlier, right, she mentioned the word training. And training is absolutely part of it. But I see development as a journey. And there are many things that you want to look to incorporate into the development of your leader or future leaders. So absolutely, there is going to be an element of training that you need to do. There will be training around the hard skills that they need to know to be successful in your organization, right? What is the business acumen that they need? Potentially those negotiation skills, selling skills, how to read financial statements, how to interpret financial statements. And then just generally your business, like what are you in the business of doing? You're going to need to know that. But there's the soft skills as well. And several of what we said are those trends for 2021 are really those soft skills. And a lot of people say soft skills is really the wrong word to use, right? It makes it sound less important, right? Using that word soft. These skills are as important, if not more important than the hard skills. And with this, I'm talking about communication. And if you think about it, communication runs through everything we do. Every interaction, no matter what you're talking about, it's communication. So it's no wonder it is our most popular class that we train on here, because there are so many opportunities to do it well, so many opportunities to really mess it up. So communication, huge skill. Building trust, we already talked about. And that's for yourself with those that you lead. It's also creating an environment that the team that you lead has trust within the team, okay? It's coaching your employees. It's coaching your employees around their performance. And that's both their negative performance and their positive performance. It's building a culture for your team and your organization where people feel safe, where they feel respected, and where they feel heard, right? Where they know and believe and trust that their voice matters, right? So these are some of those soft skills that your future leaders need to be developing so that they can be the leaders that you need within your organization. So stretch assignments are a great way to start looking at developing your leaders. Right? Stretch assignments or rotational assignments. You know, now that we're virtual, a lot of us, or at some level you have now the capability to be virtual, you could have somebody sitting in your office here in Pennsylvania working on an assignment with another group in another area. It could be across the country, could be in another country altogether. Right? Think of how that's going to help to develop them. Think about how that will get them out of their comfort zone, have them experience new things, get to meet new people. All of those experiences are great when you think about the development that they need to have. Emotional intelligence. So also considered one of those soft skills. Extremely important for your future leaders and your current leaders to be high in emotional intelligence. And one of the things we talk about when you think about developing emotional intelligence is this is a great skill that can be developed within groups, because it's really within that interpersonal context that you get to try these skills, right? And grow them. So think about ways of developing emotional intelligence and think about ways of doing that within groups, potentially incorporated into those stretch assignments or those rotational assignments. And then finally, there's coaching. I should say finally, it's finally on my list. These are just some of the ways that you can develop your leaders. I think there's a huge opportunity to be really creative with this. And I do have another slide which will highlight some of those creative ways. But when it comes to coaching, right, there's two ways to think of coaching with your leaders that you're looking to develop. It's providing coaching for them personally. It's also supporting them in being the coach that their employees need. It's being able to have that coach-like leadership style, which is the least often leadership style used, and yet often the leadership style the situation requires. So Holly, go to the next slide for me, please. So here I just wanted to highlight, and this is the slide I grabbed from the International Coaching Federation. And it talks about the typical reasons somebody would work with a coach on a one-on-one basis. So this is you thinking about providing a coach for a leader you're thinking about developing, or for your leaders that you want to develop. These are the reasons, typical reasons that the ICF found in a study they did about 2 years ago of why people see a coach. So if you look at those reasons there, you can see how one of your future leaders, all of your future leaders, right, working with a coach to help develop in any of these areas could be really beneficial. All right, Holly, next slide, please. So I said I was going to share with you some of those creative ways that you can think to develop your future leaders. And these don't have to cost money, which is also always a plus. So the first is this idea of a do-it-yourself 360. So we're all familiar with the tool, the 360 tool. We understand what it does, but there are ways to do this where you don't have to hire somebody to administer it for you. You don't have to pay, for the tool to be able to do it yourself. You could have, as an exercise, those individuals that you think, you feel you want to develop into your future leaders. Take on a project of identifying for themselves some areas where they'd like to get feedback. They create several open-ended questions. They identify some key people they could go ask these questions of. They meet with these individuals, they explain why they're doing this, they ask their questions, they get the feedback, and then they look for themes within this feedback that they've received. Now, if you've partnered this person with a mentor, how great now, because now you can have the mentor help them digest what they found in this 360. So a really neat way to start doing some development for your leaders. Doesn't have to cost any money, doesn't have to take a lot of time, but can really be powerful for that person as they're on their journey. The other way, job shadowing. Create opportunities for your future leaders to think about who they want to shadow. Who do they feel they can learn from? And then allow them the opportunity to go create a shadowing relationship. Maybe it's only once they do it. Maybe they do it on a somewhat regular basis. You can get as creative as you want with this. Another, and as I have it listed here, individual activity, right? So another way for a person to develop as a leader is to think about speaking opportunities. Are there speaking opportunities within your organization? Are there events that you hold where this person could come and speak? Or are there professional organizations that this person could join and then speak in those organizations? You learn a lot as a speaker, and you first from the content that you're speaking about, but also just through the efforts to prep and then to actually go do the presentation. It's a great developmental skill. So there's some individual activities. When we think about team activities, you could come up with learning projects, right? So if you have a group of leaders that you're putting through these developmental activities, create a learning project. Right now, this would need a mentor, or would need somebody that's going to guide this process. But you pull a group of people together, you provide them a business challenge, you tell them what success will look like, and then, as I said, you have the sponsor that's going to kind of guide this. But give them this problem to solve. Let them see what they can do with it. Right? Great practice for them. Great opportunity for you to see how they'll do when they're actually working on something. And it will not only tell you how they approach problems, it will tell you how they work together as a team. So a lot can be learned from doing something like that. Another really neat idea that I liked was this idea of bring a friend to a staff meeting. So if you're a senior leader and on your team, you have managers that are that routinely come to your staff meeting, allow each one of those managers to identify a high potential employee on their team, someone who they feel has the ability to be developed into a future leader. Let them invite that person to your staff meeting and conduct your staff meeting as you normally would. Allow this person or these guests to observe what happens. See the types of conversations that are had. See the types of information that needs to be provided and the interactions that happen. Great experience, great exposure, and then follow up with those individuals. right? Either the manager that brought them or somebody else to say, what do you think? What did you learn? What did you like about that? Right? So great way, again, to just start exposing people and seeing, is this for you? Do you think you would like this? Also the ability to have brainstorming sessions. I love brainstorming sessions. Throw a challenge out there for a group of people and let them brainstorm. Again, a great opportunity to just see how they think, how creative they can be, and how they can work together. And then lastly, do a leadership book club. Grab that mentor or that sponsor who really wants to help people explore new ideas. Create a book club. And there are tons of leadership books out there. And I think every day you can find an email that's recommending, this book or that book, or the top 10 leadership books of 2020. So there's no lack of material for this type of book club. And I think you could get a lot of leverage out of something like that. And again, that doesn't have to cost you any money. So Holly, I think that does bring us to the end of our presentation. What I did want to circle back to is that beautiful picture of the ocean that Holly showed at the very beginning. This is a big topic, as you know, and we touched on just a very small part of it. If though you like this idea of talking about how to develop your future leaders, potentially even your current leaders, and you'd like to continue the conversation, just go ahead and chat. Let us know that you'd be interested in doing something, right? And at least continuing the conversation. And we're going to think of ways that we can create opportunities to do that. Holly and I love talking about this. I already said I love brainstorming as well. So we would be happy to continue this conversation. Just let us know if you're interested. Thank you very much for your time. With that, I guess I turn it over to Amy.
Yeah, I'm gonna, one sec, I'd like to respond to, there's a question in chat. So somebody wrote, how about potential leaders thinking that means becoming management? I know in IT, people often want to stay technical versus what they see as management. But is it possible to be a leader and not become management? One of the things that I briefly touched upon earlier is that there are leaders at every level, absolutely. And that being a leader does not, certainly when you're more in executive leadership, that does mean that you're going to be managing a team of people. But certainly there are absolute leaders at a individual contributor level for sure. And that is, that they possess those skills and are able to really help everybody around them be better for sure. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Margaret.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think when you look at those soft skills that we discussed, needing to train your future leaders, I don't think you want all of your employees to have many of those same soft skills, especially when we think about communication, but even the ability to be more coach-like. That approach is just way more supportive for employees when you ask questions, and that's really what it boils down to, more than telling. So even as a peer, to be able to have a conversation with an employee where you help to coach them through something, as opposed to telling them or giving them your opinion, that's going to be way more helpful. So yeah, so much of what we're talking about, right, doesn't mean that it's only for those individuals who want to be a manager at some point and who aspire to moving on. But certainly for those individuals, you do want to identify them and start developing them. But you do want to look at all of your employees, because the ability to lead an organization, have more leaders, they be more successful for sure.
Guys, that was great. Thank you very much, Holly and Margaret. There was one comment, I think it only went to panelists, from one of our members, which I thought was a great idea. So he, I think mentoring is a really interesting way to kind of deal with potential high potentials. And this CEO said that when he has a decision to make, what he does is he asks his mentee what they would do and how they'd reach the decision. So kind of helping model out decision making, not tell them what you're doing, but kind of see their decision making capabilities. So. And again, I think a lot of what we look at is high potentials. How do we develop them, which also helps us retain them? And I think this, some mentoring is a really good thing to be thinking about, which segues to our April 6th session, where we will talk about mentoring and kind of tips on doing that. So, but thank you again. That was great. And with that, we'll turn it over to Amy for the update.